When you harp on your right to distinguish between men and women, are you afraid that you're going to be attracted to trans women?
I'm not. You might hate me for telling you the truth, but I think the truth will set you free. And furthermore, your masquerading as a woman does infringe on the legitimate rights of other people, the rights of women to have their own bathrooms.
5 woke activists who instantly regret speaking. When passion meets the internet, things can twist fast. These woke activists thought they had it figured out until their words backfired spectacularly, completely caught in the crossfire of public opinion. Let's look at how these woke activists were destroyed in mere seconds. We'll start with number 5, Michael Knowles' heated clash with a transgender. Michael's witty takedowns have become legendary, combining sharp humor with memorable comebacks that leave his opponents speechless. Here's one exchange that ended in the complete embarrassment of his opponent.
In the recent past, you've advocated for the outright eradication of transgenderism from public life, with the claim that the supposed right of confused people to pretend to be the opposite sex necessarily infringes on your right to I'm standing here now, a biological male, wearing a dress with a pair of leggings. Do you sincerely believe that I should be subject to punitive justice on the basis of what I'm wearing? And if so, are you willing to turn yourself in for wearing women's panties in your gay college film?
This exchange happened between Michael Knowles and a trans student during a debate on transgenderism. The student, identifying as a woman but biologically male, argued passionately about the right of trans individuals to access spaces matching their gender identity.
Well, I'll take those questions in order, I guess, is what I would do. Because you are a man, and I don't know how exactly you came to the point where you think you're a woman or very much would like to be a woman, but you aren't.
Michael points out that anyone who affirms the delusion that gender can be fluid is not doing any favors to anyone, especially when the delusion relates to something as significant as the reality of who you are.
And I don't think anyone who is affirming your delusion is helping you. I don't think that they're actually an ally of yours. I think they're lying to you, and I think it's very disrespectful, and I think it will not lead to your flourishing. I think it will only immiserate you.
He doubles down on his position, pointing out that the imposition of delusion on the rest of society is an infringement and potential danger.
You might hate me for telling you the truth, but I think the truth will set you free. And furthermore, your masquerading as a woman does infringe on the legitimate rights of other people, the rights of women to have their own bathroom.
Mr. Knowles unapologetically points out that believing something false does not give you the right to take away safe spaces for actual women.
That is not something that you have a right to do, no matter how sincerely you believe the fantasy that you are a woman.
Perhaps as a way to cut the tension a little bit, Michael comically shifts to address the student's point about his involvement in a student film during his time at Yale.
As to that Yale thesis film, this thing dogs me. You know, back in my wayward youth, I was never a transvestite or a homosexual or anything, but I was something even more morally suspect. I was a professional actor.
He continues with a lighthearted explanation and throws in a couple playful remarks about his alma mater.
I played 200 roles, I would estimate, in my acting career. But you play one half gay guy in a Yale thesis film one time, it's all anybody wants to talk about. The only further thing I will say about that Yale undergraduate thesis film, that is the most heterosexual thing that has ever been produced at Yale University, okay?
Michael brings the conversation back to the real topic at hand and compassionately stresses that he is the one willing to tell the truth, even if it isn't what the student wants to hear.
In any case, I think your second question was a little bit more of a joke. Your first question, it seems like a sincere question, and my answer to you is sincere. I'm happy to answer any more questions you have, but I'm not going to lie to you, and I think the people who are continuing to lie to you about so basic an aspect of your nature and the rights that you have in political society are not doing you any favors at all.
The student, obviously feeling defeated, with one last-ditch effort in an apparent attempt to get one more punch in before cowering away outmatched, asked a question that Michael shuts down effortlessly.
When you harp on your right to distinguish between men and women, are you afraid that you're going to be attracted to trans women?
I'm not.
You, sir? Are you positive?
As a final blow, Michael gives one more reason we should all feel strongly about defending truth and reality.
It's not even merely that you're putting on a dress, it's that you and people who identify as transgender are infringing upon rights and spaces that properly belong to women, and you have no right to do that. And so when you ask me, why do you care about this issue? By the way, it's not just me, it's like the vast majority of voters who care about this. The reason is because we live in society and we have political rights, and also because we care for the truth.
Number 4, Ben Shapiro debates wokeness and historical trauma. Now, let's have a look at a discussion that starts with a question about whether Ben descends from Holocaust survivors. He explains his great-great-grandparents arrived in America, but much of their extended family perished during the Holocaust.
Holocaust survivors, or are you a Jewish family that didn't?
So my great-great-grandparents arrived here. A lot of our extended family was killed in the Holocaust, but our immediate
Your
family...
great-great-grandparents, but not your grandparents.
Right.
Oh, do you have friends whose grandparents were Holocaust survivors or anything like that?
Of course, many of them.
The self-described representative of woke
I am a representative of wokeness.
This points out that families of survivors often carry generational trauma, mentioning his own family's struggles. Ben agrees that trauma can be passed down, but notes that it doesn't affect everyone equally. Some children of survivors turn out very different from others.
So you are officially woke. That is what wokeness is about. It's like, people's grandparents or their great-grandparents were slaves.
Soon, the conversation shifts to the concept of wokeness as this man defines Ben Shapiro as officially woke. Ben critiques the idea, pointing out that acknowledging historical consequences isn't the same as being woke. According to him, wokeness goes further, suggesting that present inequalities are due to historical injustices and current systemic issues.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So if the idea is that history has consequences, of course that's true. That's not wokeness.
Yeah.
That is not wokeness. What wokeness suggests is that fundamental institutions in American society
No, it doesn't.
Yes,
This woke activist appears to not even want a response from Ben. He continues to interrupt, referring back to personal experiences that supposedly prove that the existence of a few racists means that our entire society is systemically racist.
Okay, so we're gonna have to stop here because this is going nowhere. But
What's up?
I'm gonna have to stop with you because this is going nowhere. All I'm going to say is this. To
No,
sum up,
I just am trying to understand your perspective.
on it.
Just one more second.
Ben listens but points out that he doesn't have a clear argument for woke ideology. He explains that history undoubtedly impacts the present, but wokeness exaggerates this idea, claiming that all current differences stem from the past or ongoing injustices.
I want to make one final point to sum up there. If the idea is that traumas of the past invariably bleed down into the present, that does not explain why certain groups that have been historically not only marginalized but slaughtered in mass genocide are some of the most successful groups in our society.
For example, if someone robs a store today, blaming that act on historical injustices from decades ago attempts to remove accountability, breaking cycles of trauma. Ben says requires good decision-making in the present, not just dwelling on the past.
If the idea is that past trauma always equals current inequality, or that my actions in, say, robbing a convenience store are attributable to bad actions that happened in Alabama in 1930, the answer to that is no. Don't rob the convenience store.
The conversation has become heated as this man tries to redefine wokeness, but Ben insists that the progressive movement shifts definitions to avoid addressing the flaws in its argument. He concludes that while historical trauma is valid, it doesn't universally determine outcomes.
The only way that you're going to be able to break the chain of history is to make good decisions. What people on the left don't like to talk about is actual solutions. What they like to do is bitch about problems that existed 60 years ago and blame those for failures to solve them now.
Instead, action and personal responsibility are what truly break generational cycles. Number 3, Charlie Kirk educates student on wokeness. Another telling moment occurs when Charlie Kirk exposes the woke indoctrination of academia. One student starts by challenging Charlie's view that college is a scam, referencing data that shows college graduates earn more in their lifetime compared to non-graduates.
Stance on college is a scam because I feel like, according to the Hamilton Institute, people who get bachelor degrees over a total lifetime earnings will earn over $1 million more than those who don't. And also, I feel like college is an important place for people to go learn valuable life lessons.
But Charlie contends that colleges are promoting a biased agenda by focusing on certain narratives and disregarding alternative perspectives, which is indoctrination, not education.
Question is, do the best writers learn to write in college? Probably not. No. The best writers are gifted writing, and they learn to write by writing.
Charlie furthers his point by asking if great writers learn to write in college. He argues that most develop their craft by practicing, not by sitting in classrooms.
For example, what are you studying? Can I ask?
Economics.
Okay, so what do you think of Thomas Sowell?
I actually really like him. I bought his book, Basic Economics.
Great.
He's one of the first economists I ever
Do they
really
teach
looked
it
at.
here?
Not yet, but also I've only been
Okay,
for like
so now
1
you're proving
year.
my point. If you're studying economics and they're not teaching Thomas Sowell, you're not getting an education, you're getting an indoctrination.
Shifting focus, Charlie asks what the student is studying. Economics, he replies and mentions that he enjoys Thomas Sowell's work. Charlie asks if Sowell is taught at the college. The student admits that Thomas Sowell is not taught, confirming Charlie's argument that their education is limited to a specific framing of ideology.
And you're being scammed.
Okay.
Milton Friedman, do they teach Milton Friedman here?
No, but I'm aware of him.
Okay, Ludwig von Mises,
I'm aware of him, but no.
Murray
Well,
Rothbard, hold on.
No.
F.A. Hayek,
No.
Frederick Bastiat.
No.
You're not getting economics education, you're getting an indoctrination.
Charlie lists other influential economists like Milton Friedman, Ludwig von Mises, F.A. Hayek, and Murray Rothbard, questioning rhetorically why these names aren't part of the curriculum. All of this is to suggest that woke indoctrination is the intent.
Okay, so you read about John Maynard Keynes, but you were
class.
Keynes.
Yeah, in class. I love
Yeah,
it
okay.
in class.
Right, so that's my point, is that they'll teach you Keynes, but they won't teach you one out of the 7 people that I mentioned of Bastiat, Hayek, von Mises, Rothbard, Sowell, or Friedman.
Charlie explains the issue. Colleges are pushing a narrow narrative. He notes Keynesian economics is taught while opposing schools of thought, like free market economics, are ignored. This, he says, isn't education but indoctrination. The student defends the institution, mentioning he's only been in college for a short time, but Charlie presses on. He emphasizes the lack of exposure to alternative economic theories and how this reflects a systemic bias in academia.
Now maybe later on you'll get a supply side, economics teacher here, but this idea that you go to college to kind of get your worldview liberated, yet you get your worldview altered, to be perfectly honest.
The conversation pivots to the financial argument. Charlie agrees earning potential depends entirely on the chosen field. STEM majors and other practical disciplines can yield high returns, but liberal arts often lead to lower wages. Charlie discussed a recent study revealing the lowest paying degrees like sociology and liberal arts are also some of the most popular, leaving students burdened with a debt and poor career prospects.
Yeah.
If you study the liberal arts, even after 10 years, study came out yesterday, 16 lowest paid majors happen to be some of the highest majors that people actually go and study, which is liberal arts, sociology. God bless people that do that stuff, I suppose. But you're also filled with all of the woke rubbish that is infecting our society.
Number 2, Matt Walsh, schooling woke activists on transing children. We'll continue with an interaction between Matt Walsh and a woke college student who wants to raise awareness for transgender ideology. What happens at the end will give her a pure reality check. The discussion kicks off with the student raising the issue of mental health struggles in the trans community.
People in the trans community and how these preventative measures of, let's say, like puberty and the surgeries that go for gender affirmation and how these are life-changing and life-saving. I know many people...
How do you know?
Oh, okay. 1 second, if I can finish my conversation.
She argues that while the focus is often on challenges associated with transitioning, we often ignore the positive side of interventions like puberty blockers and gender-affirming surgeries. Supporters of the cause insist these measures have drastically improved lives and even claim they can be life-saving, hypothetically.
Let me rephrase that. Dozens of people who have had interventions, including gender-affirming, let's say, therapies, hormones, surgeries, that have made their lives better. I'm not saying it didn't force them to commit suicide, but it made their lives better. What do you have to say for the happy trans community?
Matt Walsh pushes back, asking for evidence to support their bold claim. He points out that for thousands of years, humanity functioned without medical transitions, yet there was not a widespread suicide epidemic. Matt highlights that so-called gender-affirming care contradicts historical, biological, and scientific norms, and that trans activists fail to provide solid justification for its use because the justification doesn't exist.
That confirms their identity that they identify with. And you can look that up. That's a fact.
I will look that up.
Yeah, it's a fact.
I will look that up, and I won't find it.
Yeah.
It's not a fact.
Oh.
It's not a fact.
Should we all pull out Google really quick and look?
So you're saying a trans man has the brain of a woman?
The student attempts to justify her view by referencing personal anecdote and a supposed study about trans individuals having brain patterns similar to their identified gender. She recalls learning this in school and claims to have rechecked the information before approaching Matt. He immediately challenges this, calling it untrue and demanding specific, credible evidence. The conversation shifts to puberty blockers and tensions rise even higher. Matt describes these drugs as a form of chemical castration, originally developed to treat prostate cancer and even used on sex offenders.
You actually started by saying that blocking puberty, which is chemical castration of a child,
Just one example, yeah.
is life-saving.
It can be,
How do you know?
because there are
He argues that administering such powerful drugs to healthy children is extreme and dangerous. The student counters, saying these interventions have helped some children improve their lives, even if they can't provide exact numbers or studies.
they're alive right this second, but there are children that it has helped. So what do you have to say for the happy trans community who has benefited from these procedures? That's my question
I guess what I have
for you.
to say is that your entire question is built on a whole stack of false premises that you can't begin to even remotely defend.
Matt remains unconvinced, pressing for data on how many children have genuinely benefited, how success is measured, and whether the evidence supports the claim that these treatments are life-saving. The student struggles to provide concrete answers, relying on anecdotal evidence and secondhand accounts. Coming in at number 1, Senator Hawley against transgender athletes. Our final pick highlights the moment Senator Hawley slammed the president of the NCAA, Charlie Baker, on Baker's indefensible position that men should have access to women's private spaces, specifically relating to women's sports.
About the safety of women in the sports of the NCAA overseas. Did you say the federal law requires the NCAA to permit biological men to play in women's sports?
No, I said there have been 5 cases in federal court in the past 18 months. And
okay, because I thought you told him that
federal
the
judges
NCAA
sided
couldn't
with
do,
participation.
the reason the NCAA...
Hawley asked if federal law requires biological men to compete in women's categories. Baker attempted to reference court cases, but was promptly shut down. No federal law forces the NCAA to implement such policies.
There's no federal law that requires it, right? The relevant federal law is Title IX, is it not? You're familiar with Title IX.
If guidance on this issue from Title IX or guidance with respect to discrimination law would be
Title IX is already the law. Title IX says
federal judges have
it's
ruled
20
on
U.S.C. Section 1681A. By the way, let's just dispense with that canard. No federal court has ordered the NCAA to include biological men in women's sports. Right?
Hawley shifted to Title IX, which was created to prevent discrimination based on sex. He made the firm point that no court has mandated the NCAA to allow biological men in women's sports, contrary to Baker's claims. The senator also grilled him on fairness, citing examples where women's volleyball teams were forced to forfeit games because a biological male was competing. This directly denied female athletes a shot at championships.
Federal court. And your rules explicitly permit biological males in women's sports. And I am asking you, why is that fair to the women? All of these women on these teams had to forfeit games and therefore a chance to compete in the championship because of your rules. And I want to know, why is that protective of women? That's my question.
Hawley also brought up issues of locker rooms. NCAA guidelines allow transgender athletes to use facilities matching their gender identity, leaving women to either share the space or find alternatives. Hawley pointed out that this shifts the burden entirely onto women, asking how that could be considered fair or protective of their rights.
The clarity on this issue at the federal level would be very helpful.
Oh, that is such a cop-out. In other words, somebody else please do it for us. Keep sending us the money. We'll go to court and
We don't-
argue
we-
that
by the way,
Title
we do
IX
not
doesn't
take-
even apply
We do not
to
take
us.
we do not take a dime in federal money. Not a dime.
Is that why you're arguing Title IX doesn't apply
No,
to you?
yes, part of it, yes.
You honestly think you shouldn't be subject to Title IX? Optionality. What it says is transgender student athletes will be able to use the locker room, shower, and toilet in accordance with their gender identity. That means men will be able to use the women's locker rooms. And as Riley Gaines and others have testified before this committee, that means if a man, a biological man, wants to use their locker room, they just have to accept it.
Baker tried to deflect responsibility by claiming that local event organizers handle accommodations. Hawley shot back, frustrated at the NCAA's refusal to take accountability while being the governing body.
Or else the women have to go somewhere else. They've got to go find an alternative. Why is that fair?
We told the local folks who've hosted our tournaments they need to create accommodations for the people who are playing.
You know, so it's the feds on the one hand, it's the locals on the other hand. The only person who doesn't seem to bear any responsibility in this is you and the NCAA, who are the governing body. Been subject to Title IX. Mr. Baker, I can't tell you how disappointed this makes me, but not just disappointed, frankly, infuriated for the student athletes who are suffering because of your policies, and you won't even defend them. You won't even take responsibility.
And there you have it. 5 moments where woke activism backfired big time. If you enjoyed this breakdown, you'll want to catch our other video that exposes 5 times the woke media got caught straight up lying. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Let us know your favorite moment in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video.